In this lecture, we are going to quickly hide the modal. At the moment, I'm logged in. There are two noticeable problems with the current implementation of our authentication modal. Firstly, the header tools block asks the user to log in. That doesn't seem right. The header tools should acknowledge the user is logged in. Secondly, the modal will continue to appear. If we click on the link, the modal pops up. It shouldn't be possible to create a new account or log in. Both problems can be resolved by checking the user's current authentication status. If they're logged in, we are going to greet the user. As for the modal, it'll be completely invisible. The link should not open the modal. For this lecture, we are going to start by hiding the modal. In your editor, open the auth_modal.php file. At the top of the function, add a conditional statement. The condition will be the isUserLoggedIn function. This function is defined by WordPress. It'll check the user's current authentication. If the user is logged in, this function returns true. Inside the block, let's return an empty string. By returning an empty string, the modal will never appear. It doesn't matter if there are links with the openModal class. Another thing worth mentioning is the location of this condition. We're not waiting to create a buffer. It's not necessary to return an empty string. Let's test our code by refreshing the page. If we click on the link, the modal never appears. We've fixed the second problem of our block. However, the links are still displaying the wrong text. In addition, there's another problem that's hidden from us. In the browser, open the console panel of the developer tools. After clicking on the link, an error gets thrown by the console. Despite not adding the modal, the openModal class is still applied to the link. We need to remove this link too. Otherwise, the messages will continue to appear in the console. Let's modify the header tools block by opening the headertools.php file. At the top of the function, create a variable called user. The value will be the wp-getCurrentUser function. We're not going to be using the isUserLoggedIn function. We need more than a Boolean value. Inside the block, the user's name should be rendered on the page. The wp-getCurrentUser function will check if the user is logged in. The value returned by this function will be an object of the user's info. But what if they're not logged in? The object returned by this function has a method for verifying the user's authentication. We can take advantage of this function before reading their data. Let me show you an example. Below the user variable, create a variable called name. The value will be the following: user exists, user login, sign in. In this example, we're using a ternary operator before assigning a value to the variable. The exists method will check if the user object has information. If there's a user, this method returns true. In this case, we can set the variable to the name from the object by accessing the user login property. Otherwise, we're setting the variable to static text to encourage the user to log in. Let's create one more variable called openClass. The value for this variable will be the following: user exists, empty string, openModal. The class will be stored in a variable. We're not going to statically render the class. It should be dynamic. Let's update our template to output this information. Inside the template, search for an anchor element with a class called signInLink. On this element, we can replace the openModal class with the openClass variable. Next, search for a div tag with a class called signInText. Replace the static text with the name variable. In both examples, we are entering PHP mode to echo the variable's values. After making those changes, let's refresh the page. This time, things are different. I'm still logged into the application. The header tools block will display my name on the page. Furthermore, the link does not throw errors after clicking on it. That's perfect. We've successfully updated the blocks to behave correctly. You can log out to test the opposite behavior. In the next lecture, let's discuss some final topics.